Leadership is the topic that I will be talking for the next one.
Ma'am, I'll take a minute in between to introduce you formally.
Sure.
Good evening, participants. You have seen Ponni ma'am. She is going to speak to us on the penultimate session of this webinar series by women leaders. These webinar series are curtain raisers for Women in Engineering Global Summit, which is due to happen during October 2020 from IEEE Bangalore section. A small introduction to Ponni ma'am. Ponni K is currently the head of Telco Cloud Data Center and Test Networks with Nokia Mobile Networks. She is leading the global organization with teams, global R&D laboratories, and cloud data center in Nokia across 6 countries. She heads Nokia Bangalore University Collaboration Forum and has successfully launched various programs across Indian universities. She is passionate about taking the telecom technologies learnings to the doorstep of academic world. She has 23 plus years of experience at Nokia, Nokia Siemens Networks, and Siemens Communication in various leadership positions and challenging assignments. Her experience spans R&D product development, managing globally distributed teams for both complex large-scale products to customer-specific projects. She is responsible for setting up and leading Nokia Telco cloud data centers and global test networks, including 5G networks. As Nokia leadership champion, she has been training and developing future leaders of Nokia through meaningful and adaptable leadership programs. Also, as a Nokia certified coach, she coaches and mentors high performing employees who have taken key roles within the company. I'm proud to say that Ponni ma'am is a recipient of IEEE Bangalore Women Technologist of the Year 2019 and several Siemens Directors Award for outstanding performance. Ponni ma'am is an MBA graduate from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and BE from National Institute of Technology, Trichy. Today, she is going to talk to us on how to step up leadership. Ma'am, the floor is yours. Please take over.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your kind words. So maybe before we go into the actual topic, a little bit about myself from my own self. It's like holding a mirror for me. So this is about me, typically playing multiple roles, and coming from the engineering and business management background, been predominantly doing product development, and especially in multiple roles, including the product delivery, project and product management, program management, and also global function leader, as ma'am has already introduced. Now managing the cloud data center for all the R&D products in the mobile networks business group of Nokia, as well as test networks for all the business groups across Nokia. It's a global function spanning multiple countries, and really a very enriching experience and period for me. And when it comes to what I enjoy delivering product or services with my teams, and thoroughly enjoy building high performing teams, leading and coaching them, working with people. Having worked in Nokia for this 2+ decades now, and especially Nokia, as we have gone through a number of mergers and acquisitions, it's been quite an enriching experience in terms of going through all of these M&As and becoming a larger company, now a conglomerate of many companies together, and thereby being contributing to the transformation of the organizations in Nokia. So that's also one of very enriching experience for me, where I have been contributing and learning a lot as a leader as well. And I enjoy delivering tangible results. So I really have to really get something in terms of measurable results as output that really excites me. And I love working with the next generation. So as Sujata ma'am already mentioned, working with a lot of universities, Indian universities, And with the professors and also the next generation students, it really helps me to keep me young at heart. And when it comes to the personal side, yeah, I enjoy really the family time I get. And being right in the middle of the midlife crisis, especially with a teenage son, having a good sleep is a bliss. So that's really what I enjoy these days. And in short, that's what explains me. So before going into the detailed topics about the leadership, which is step up leadership, I just want to tell you that we may recall now, no other time or period in our era is going to be more apt than today to look at the leadership topic, especially thanks to this COVID situation, which brought a lot of challenges in our hands. So in the next 40 minutes, what I would like to talk about is how to step up our leadership quotient, how to improve our leadership attributes, and especially in two sections. I will divide it into two sessions. The first one, looking into the attributes and the learnings, the journey of my own self as a leader in terms of improving the leadership quotient. And then the second part of it, particularly for the women leaders, especially what it takes for the women to become leaders. And of course, it's not just for the women to hear. It is also for the male leaders to hear, because it's they who would support to get this environment balanced in the world. So that's why it's actually for both the genders. It's not gender specific, but it's mainly a call for the women leaders out there to step up, and hence I call it step up leadership. So to go to the first section, even before going into the actual attributes that I would talk about from my own journey, I would like to just bring one question. Is leadership a talent or is it a competence? It's an age-old question. Many great people have already pondered upon this. Probably they even have declared the result as such. What is it? But in my views, in my experience, how I see leadership is that it's not just a competence that we master in a matter of a few years or a specific period as a static competence or an ability, but it's really the capability of a person. That's how the leadership can be best defined, in my opinion. And one has to continuously nurture and develop it. It is not fixed, it is not static, and it requires continuous adaptation, continuous improvement, because the world changes, the environment changes, new economies are born, business scenarios change, and we as leaders have to continuously evolve and adopt and grow up to this. And at the same time, another important angle to it is also about a leader's ability to seamlessly transition from one style to another style, because depending on the situation and the environment and the business or the challenges even, a leader has to continuously change his style. Very clear. So that's how the theory of change leadership itself is born, to say that nowhere change is constant, right? And it's got to continuously move on, and so is also for the leadership. But what is peculiar when it comes to the leadership quotient is the seamless transition may happen at the same time, in a specific time, in a specific team, with a specific set of people that we work on. We still have to adapt across multiple styles depending on the situation. Sometimes it's the same situation, but depending on the different people, we have to adapt to different style. So that's really why the capability brings a very important attribute on a leadership table, because that is what defines how a leader adopts to a situation, how the leader exhibits the required qualities, and also demonstrate the leadership ability. So that's how I see the leadership as. So let me just explain, how I transformed as a leader. I was being my transformation journey, of course, like anybody else, especially in the IT industry. I come from a technical background with as a computer science grad. I was really a hardcore programmer at heart. And then, following the typical IT, career evolution, I became a manager. But then, what really made me as a leader? What are my learnings in my journey as a leader? So there are a few of them which I've composed them into building blocks. What I call as the adaptive leadership. A leader has to continuously adapt depending on the situation, person, scenarios, challenges, and so on and so forth. So there are these four building blocks which has helped me to evaluate as a better leader, and following the principles of the adaptive leadership. So the first one is the Yin-Yang model of leadership. Of course, the Yin-Yang model by itself is very famous, and it's applicable to many attributes of business and also for the leadership. The second one is managing the complexity, especially like I explained in my experience in the company where I've been working on, which is typically global, spanning across multiple cultures and countries. How do I manage complexity? And what kind of leadership challenges it brings on? That shaped up my leadership, understanding, abilities, and also the attributes that I developed. And then the situational leadership, irrespective of what we are capable of, what the situation is, the situational leadership, how do we adapt our leadership based on the situation? The situation itself is, combination of many factors together, which we will see going forward. So that I also defined how I evolve myself and how any leader will have to face and develop their own leadership abilities. And finally, few tips on managing own self. That's also leadership framework theory. I found a couple of theories which really helped me to do the right thing. Quite a few times we try to do things right, but what is more important for a leader, what differentiates a leader from everybody else is they do the right thing. So let's move on to the first topic, that is the Yin-Yang model. So the beauty of this is how opposite things coexist together. At the same time, how as a leader we need to exhibit or we need to practice, understand the opposite principles and also apply opposite leadership abilities, qualities, or attributes in managing a given challenge or a given team or an organization. That exactly is what Yin-Yang model defines. Let's take, for example, the implicit purpose and explicit objectives. There may be situations where we are working in a specific business scenario. Things are not very clear. Where the direction in which we go or the purpose of the business, the vision is still not, very crystal clear, but it's evolving. That cannot be an excuse when it comes to a team, when you're working with the individuals, when you're working with your team, or when you're working for yourself to define the objectives, because the objectives have to be explicit. And this is what we say, even the situation is implicit, it's not written down explicitly, it's what we actually infer, it's what we shape up as we go along. But when it comes to objectives, it's got to be very clear. That's exactly what we call as yin yang. There are two elements which are completely of opposite nature, but applying to a single scenario. So we can take another example for, the few simple rules and freedom to act. So we may have come across many situations where while managing a team, especially if it comprises your team members are really senior members and they are all experienced and they are experts in their own field, give them the freedom they want. Freedom to act is very important in such an organization setup, because that's what the experts and experienced members deserve and earn for. But at the same time, it cannot be chaos. It cannot be, let wild. So what we need to have in place is very simple rules, binding rules. People can work on their own skill and will if the situation is like that. If the environment is challenging enough, at the same time it nurtures creativity, it nurtures innovation, people have the scope of evolving new concepts, they can work based on their skill and will. But then there's got to be few simple rules, there's got to be defined boundaries within which they have to work. Otherwise, we will end up with chaos. There are a lot of organization examples where many companies, where especially you see that they have gone probably down the drain, they have not emerged successful or they have vanished. Typically, you will see scenarios or instances and situations where the market was evolving. There were a lot of opportunities, things were changing, and then people were working on their own will. They are real experts in the field. But what went wrong is they did not have common boundaries. They did not have well defined business boundaries. They did not have rules that they had to adhere to. So when everybody interpreted the boundary and the rules on their own way, or there was missing rules and boundaries, then things went wrong. Then the business went into a chaotic situation. Some have come out of it and some have vanished. So that's exactly what Yin-Yang model helps us to, and it applies to every individual leader at all levels and at all dimensions to practice this, to keep in mind that for every single topic, every single attribute of leadership, we need to look at the yin as well as the yang side, because usually they complement each other. So that's what I would really say, because I really found this very helpful, especially when there are situations where I work with multiple teams at the same time on multiple topics. But then there are some teams where they're really mature, they are very skilled. There are challenges and opportunities coming in their way, and where I have to just work as a leader, giving them the direction, or giving them the freedom as well, and at the same time setting the direction and letting them to achieve. On the other hand, either in the same situation or in a different business environment, I also see that teams I work with where they are young, fresh, not experienced so much. They may be skilled. They have not gone through these kind of experiences. In which case, I have to manage them. I have to really guide them. So those kind of situations where I have to explicitly apply the leader versus manager role in the same project but with two different teams. I have to adapt my leadership style in that place. Similarly, the business and the people elements of leadership may be exactly complementing each other. Or the people elements may be very hazy. People may be wanting the freedom. They want the boundaries to be very hazy. But at the same time, the business will demand very clear objectives. Business will demand defined boundaries. So we have to understand these complementing at the same time opposite nature of these attributes that we are going to manage as leaders. And it really helped me a lot, the yin yang model. The second building block, I would say, is the managing complexity in the global leadership. Right. So whenever there is a challenge, it's been quite a difficult journey for me to really understand this and kind of able to relate any given situation to this. It takes time for us to really relate the challenge. Once we get into a challenge, it's a skill that's needed. It's an ability that's needed for us to step out and then assess the situation and put it into this four quadrant matrix, 2x2 matrix to define. So we see everything. We define things like, okay, this is very complex, but in reality, if we are able to analyze the detailed attributes of the situation, the nature of the problem that we are trying to solve, or the nature of the business that's evolving, or the nature of the transaction that we are doing, we'll be able to define this very clearly. So there are four types of problems or situations that we typically try to solve. First one is very simple. How do I define the simple scenario or a simple situation? Is cause is the effect. We know the direct relationship between the cause which gives the effect. So it's very simple. We know what causes what. So once we know that, all it matters is that we need to put the right people. We need to have the right process and clearly define what is the mode of operation. The standard operating procedures must be defined. Let people know that they have to evolve the best practices, they have to utilize the best practices available, and that's it. So typically, a leader doesn't need to set a lot of effort in it if it's going to be a simple business. It's an existing business, existing scenario, we know everything laid out clearly, then we can just work as a manager. It could also be a simple business, but with a lot of potentials, it's evolving. It's a new market scenario and so on, where the cause and the effect is very clearly known. But then we need to be a challenging leader as well in those cases to actually promote innovation, especially if it's a new product, new technology, or a new business scenario. These are the places where just by going with the standard ops or process will not help, and we have to adapt ourselves to become a challenging leader there. Because if the people are really skilled, and if it's an evolving technology or a business, or a situation, then it's what it warrants is really the challenging leader to get the best out of the people and the situation. So that's the kind of analysis that we have to make when we are looking at the simple scenarios. So let's take the complicated case. So when are things complicated, and how to differentiate complex and complicated is very difficult itself. So, the complicated case is still where to relate the cause to the effect. For example, whenever there are results happening, you know what is related to this. Maybe it's not the only cause, it could be a multiple cause, but you're able to really relate the causes which led to the effect, or the effects that have happened from a set of causes. So those kind of direct relations, when they are available, what it takes is a lot of analysis. We need experts on board. So as a leader, what we need to then do is focus on the resourcing aspect. Look at people, look at bringing the best experts, follow good practices. As a leader, we have to now take a supporting leader. So this is not about just beating the same team again and again, asking them to innovate. That does not solve complicated problems. When it is complicated, and if you know there is only a relationship, but you don't know the exact formula between the cause and the effect, so there is no prescribed formula, and there is going to be a set of parameters which are going to be involved in a certain relation to cause and effect, and you have to determine this effect, then you need to have experts on board. Of course, in the evolving time, who knows, in future, for all of this, we may have machine learning solutions available, but today we don't have. Many of the business problem situations are not solved yet by the machine learning algorithm. So we have to apply a lot of leadership quotient and attributes to solve them. So if you move on to the complex part, like I said, it's very easy to get confused between complex and complicated scenarios. The only difference is the complex scenario, we will not be able to predict what is causing the effect. We know a set of causes which are there. You may find out a set of root causes. You also know what all results are happening, but not only the exact relationship, but also the probability by which it is happening, or you can to definitely say how often it's happening or how exactly it's happening. It is not easy. So we need to probe a lot, especially when this happens quite a lot when when you are moving to an existing project, or when you are getting into a M&A kind of situation. You have already a company which you are inheriting, or a team which you are inheriting, and then which is already going through a difficult time. The results are not as expected. Then you have to analyze, probe a lot to understand between the relationship between the cause and the effect. So you have to make pattern matching there. So you have to understand the various patterns that are existing. And these may be depending on the people related aspects, these may be related to the technological aspects, but you need to have not just the experts with you, but you need to ask a lot of questions. That is where probe becomes a very, very important aspect. And for probing to find the answer, a leader needs to have a lot of patience and exploration ability. Person should have the knack for exploring things. They enjoy the journey of exploring and getting the result out of it. And the only thing is, it most often looks like a controlling leader, because you probe a lot. You work with the people. You get more closer to the people. You be along with your team, and you work. You probe a lot. You find answers. You seek answers. Quite a few times you demand answers, and that actually turns out to be a controlling leadership style. The last one is very interesting, but a dangerous too, which is chaotic. So typically the situation of any business, a company, or a team which is in a downward spiral could be an example, best example for chaotic, business situation, where We know things are going wrong, and quite a few of the causes have no relationship to the effects, because if there has been a relationship, believe me, all the leaders would have solved it already. Not necessarily they are related. We are not able to predict between them, so there is going to be a lot of chaos. In that case, what really requires is focus on only the effect. Focus on what is required, set the rules, set the path, set the guidance for it, define the boundary conditions. You be in the front. Quite a few times commanding as well as leading from the front is needed here, but at the same time, to be successful, the leader has to be quite charismatic. So that is why this chaotic situation always determines or needs charismatic and commanding leader. Take any company. I can totally say our own Nokia. As we went through the turnaround journey, it was really the charismatic and the commanding leader who brought all the difference to us. So that's about the various situations, and this is applicable to every individual's own scope as well. So if you take yourself as a team lead, if you take yourself as a business leader, if you take yourself as an organizational leader, any particular situation that we are handling, whether it is going to be a business related problem or is it going to be an organizational transformation or a design, the problems and the individual goals that you are listing down, if we are able to analyze between these complex versus complicated matrix, and we are able to determine which quadrant they belong to, it's very easy to design the team around it. It's very easy also to design how you work with them, what kind of leadership abilities or attributes you have to portray or display and demonstrate to get the results out. That's why a leader sometimes, like I said, it could be a simple role, it could be a single role where you have to go through all of this, which means a leader has to work in all of these quadrants at the same time. And especially in IT industry, we see many of us work with global teams, with teams across the countries in a global world. And actually, you would see that the teams in various countries will go through many of these phases. Each team may be in a different quadrant at a different point of time. And as a leader for all of them, we have to apply all the concepts, all the leadership style at the same time. So that's where the trick of the trade is for leadership, to have the ability to demonstrate multiple leadership styles at the same time. The third part is the situational leadership. So this is something that which I really found with my own experience. If we determine the situation where we are, the team that we are working, and the kind of business environment is. So if you take the team could be an unskilled or a concerned or new team, or it could be a skilled team given to you, or it could be the situation which is certain, very clear but complex, or it could be totally uncertain. The probabilities are too many, we don't know what is causing it. It could be the challenges, or it could be simply a very transitioning situation, in the sense it is only about a passing journey. The opportunities or the challenges are known, but then they are already experienced by the team, so the team can easily transition into the new situation. Or it could be a business scenario or a market scenario which is bringing you a crisis situation. There's going to be a lot of challenges, or these challenges could also be opportunities. Depending on that, we have to take up any of these leadership styles. Once again, I pick and choose from these four styles that I was talking about, whether it is a supporting or a challenging or a commanding or a controlling leadership style. I call it situational leadership. And when do I exit what style was the biggest challenge? Knowing about each of these leadership style is not big deal. Practicing them at different point of time is not a big deal. But when you're looking at multi-dimensional factors which are influencing a given situation, selecting among these leadership styles is very challenging. So I use the simple who, what, where, and when questions to apply them. Ask these questions. Who are the team members that you're working with? If the team is an average skill team, and if the situation is chaotic, which means the team is just looking up to someone to help them, you know, And at the same time, the situation is, or the scenario is, it's a do or die. Either you're going to come out of this, or the company is going to sink, or the team is going to sink, or the project is going to sink. In such a situation, we need to have the commanding leader who will lead from the front, which means there's going to be a lot of involvement from the leaders. The leader has to show the way, being involved with the team, being one among the team members. That is where we say even it becomes kind of a mix of manager. Let's take a different situation where we may, for whatever reason, the team has gone through its own ups and downs. They are very upset or they're very anxious, depending on the situation. And also, the project could be a very new project, or it could be a new technology and very challenging. They have been struggling with. In almost every field, we are seeing a lot of new technologies coming up. So this is quite a familiar scenario for any company these days. And at the same time, the risk involved is very high. The business situation is such that it's difficult and the risk involved is very high. But at the same time, for example, the project itself is new and the team is also experienced. So it's not the team is not skilled. So the team is skilled, they are experienced, but the technology is new, for example. If you take such a scenario, we don't need to be doing the work along with the team, because that will kind of throttle the experienced team. The experienced team member, if they are skilled, you know what they expect? They just want the resources. They need, people along with them. They need the resources. They need the best minds for them. In such a case, it's all about hand holding, finding the right people. That's why for leaders, it's very important that they are able to have their networks well oiled. So you need to have the networks across the organization to get the right people and the right help at the right time. So that's very important for a resourceful and a supporting leader. So in that case, we have to take a supporting leadership. We have to ask for help as well. Let's take a different scenario. Like I said, if the situation, who are we working with? Very highly skilled team members. They are very committed also. They don't have any problem. They are really with energy, and they are not angry, upset, or anything. They have been going through success and they're very happy. But at the same time, it's a new situation. Let's take 5G. There are a lot of opportunities, but again, very high risk. So in terms of challenges, also it's extremely high. At the same time, when it comes to the business scenario, there may be a new direction needed. Parameters may be changing. It could be the organization which could be changing, could be the company which is changing, whatever. So, but these kind of scenarios are really, the ones where people have to be talented. They have to give their full ability to the project. They have to be innovative. They have to be creative, bring new solutions. They just cannot repeat the same thing for new technologies. So they have to be skilled in terms of technology, at the same time in terms of how they would apply that. So they have to really transform from one situation to another situations, because they have all the abilities and the energy is very. It's just that they have to move from one situation to another situation. So in such cases, the leader has to really be instigating and inspiring. Instigating in the sense that you need to be a change catalyst. Ask the right question or throw the right challenge, so that would become a catalyst for the change. It should promote them. It should actually demand them to change themselves, to not become complacent just because they are skilled or they have been in the past success. So that's a danger. So in that case, the leader has to be inspiring, at the same time need to be demanding for a change catalyst behavior. So that way we become a challenging leader. So if you take the controlling directive, that's the last style which I apply. Like I said, the team is experienced, structure. Let's take a very established, successful company or a team where everything is going fine. But then there comes a certain crisis situation. Or at the same time, the company has decided the project to be taken and given to some other team, which is totally a new team. Or imagine a situation where the product or a project is moving from one country to another country. To overcome a crisis situation, which means the team could be a new team, right? And at the same time, it's crisis. So new people, new situation, and highly risk because there is a crisis in that. But the team is experienced. They have gone through the ups and downs, and they are calm and they are obeying. So what they need is the directions. So this is exactly where we need to give them the direction. We need to give them the boundaries. We need to give them the standard operating process and procedures, and just let them do things. You don't need to be there among with them, doing the things along with them, and actually frustrate them. What we need is step back, lay out the controlling principles, and let that take over. That's where we become a controlling leadership style application. So these are the various things that, in my experience, I've seen through in case of various leadership styles and how it applies. Many of us may even see that these various styles is not about coming in an isolated way across different projects, across different time. Quite a few times, even in the same project, we see similar situations, multiple of situations of these existing at the same time. So, from time to time, even from hour to hour, we need to change our style. Just at one point of time, with one team, we need to be a kind of a directive or a controlling leader. The very next, hour to another team, which is actually very energetic and they are trying to solve a very opportunistic problem. In that case, we need to be either a supporting or a challenging leader, not controlling them, because we will then kill their innovation abilities. So these are all the things that we need to really be mindful when it comes to the leadership styles. So every hour we need to assess ourselves to say, what do I do? What kind of leader I need to be at this hour? That's very important for any leader. That's why I call it as an adaptive leadership. It's continuous adaptiveness throughout the day. Then, like I said, the last building block, which is more of a tip, I would say, but follows well-defined management principles. This is especially a study of Covey on the organizations and the effectiveness of the leadership styles of the organization. So, first question or survey that he did to identify was, where do the successful or high-performing leaders spend their time? What kind of problems they spend? And then he divided these problems into 4 quadrants that are defined by 2 parameters. Basically, is the problem that the person trying to solve is important or not important? There are quite a few times we do quite a lot of tasks which are not important, but they are just needed. They are there. They are process. We have to adhere to, but they don't determine on a day-to-day basis the results. In the long term, maybe yes. Cumulatively they do contribute, but then on a day-to-day basis, they may not really bring out big results. But they have to be followed up. They are kind of bread and butter topics. So which is what I call as not important. The other one is urgency or not urgency. This is even, it's not about just leadership quotient, even as an individual, right from students to anybody in any role. This is very important to assess is, where are you focusing on, whether important or not important topic, whether it's urgent or not urgent. Are you finding yourself always in a urgent way of handling things, or are you able to handle your topics in a planned and not non-urgent manner, right? So what the finding was that most of the high performing leaders, at a 65% of their time, two-thirds of a time, the high performing leaders were spending on important but not urgent, which means it's an important topic, getting the right attention at the right time. It is not going to the 11th hour and the last minute. They are able to do it at the right time, so they are able to get the best result. Imagine the important topics are going into urgency situation, which means when we are doing things at the last minute, it is not going to get the full attention and the proper results, right? So that brings the crisis situation. So whether it is a team or a company, whether we go into a crisis or not depends on the leader's ability, depends quite a bit on the leaders and the team, where they spend their time on. So what are we waiting for? I think we can go back to our work area and then put down all the tasks that we do, classify them in this quadrant, and then say, where do we attribute our time? So if you want to be a high performing leader, then focus on the 4th quadrant. Find out the important topics and do it on time so that they don't get into the urgent quadrant. quadrant. So that's exactly what. There may be situations, but hopefully it is not all the time. And if we are finding ourselves in that quadrant all the time, then there is something fundamentally wrong. And time for introspection for our own selves, which is the bottom right quadrant, which is not important or not urgent. If we are finding that we are spending more than 10% of our time in not urgent and not important, time for changing ourselves, or for time for changing field, or time for changing the team, whatever, but then we are not doing the right things. That's exactly what a leader has to learn. The next one is the second principle that has also been very helpful to regulate myself is how much do I be a part of the team? When do I step back? When do I stay out and direct and be a leader, external leader, outside leader? Or when do I really belong to the team? When do I be a part of the team? When do I put my hands dirty along with the team members? So this is really a very, very difficult question to answer. And this quadrant, this principle really helped me, which is to determine based on the type of people you're dealing with and the type of problem. Again, the efficiency or the effect of your contributions, depending on the goals, if that is going to be very high, if the work that we are doing is going to determine your organizational goal or project goal in a larger aspect or with a higher probability or a higher percentage effect, or if it's going to be lower, whether the goals are going to be influenced by the task or the project that you are going to do, whether on a high or a low area, that will determine the leader to say whether we actually go and get involved, we do a lot, or do we stand out. It is not a single parameter of just the effect on the goals itself, but it also depends on the people as well. How skilled are the people? Whether the people are low on skill or high on skill. Especially if the people are high on skill, and if the problem is having low effect on the project or the task is having low effect, then you just involve and then develop them further, in the sense that you have to let the people develop and work on their own. But you only have to give them the direction. So the involvement is to the level of telling them what to do and letting them develop on their own. But when the people are highly skilled, but the goal or the effect on the goal is going to be extremely high, you have to take the role of inspiring the people. You have to sell. You have to become a salesman of every plan. So the plan that you make, the task that you do, or the task division that you do among the people, it's got to be really sold to the team. The team should be on board and they should completely be in belief of what you are planning there. So that's why it's very important to do a inspiring role, and also you need to become a salesman of the plan. That's very important. So at the same time, like I said, if the people are low skilled, then you have to take two things. One is either you have to be really directing and telling them what to do. But if the task is not critical and if it is not having a big role on the goals, you can just let go. This comes to almost like a first quadrant. The effect or the impact is not very high. So you just delegate it as much as possible and let go. So there are a lot of these standard KPIs and so on and so forth. So devolving and delegating is very important. So these are all the attributes that defines one has to follow, but it's up to the leader. Like I said, the leader should have the capability to always assess the situation and then select these different styles, select the attributes, what he has to do, select the steps and the people to work with, so that to make the situation successful or the outcome successful out of that situation. Okay, so now this is the end of the first part of the first part of the session. And the few tips that I can share from my journal is, the top some things to remember is usually whether we are a leader or even our team members, sometimes we always think that the CEO of the company knows all the answers, which is not true. And we as a leader has to first believe the top does not know the answer. And why is it important? Because we as a leader, we have to first trust that we don't know the answer for everything. We have to depend on people, and there is absolutely nothing wrong when we say I don't know, and you go and ask the expert to find the answer for you. I think that's very important for an adaptive leader, to accept what he knows and what he doesn't know, and where he has to focus on. He doesn't need to know the answer for it. Second thing is content trap. Like I said, involving or devolving is a big game. Very often we get into the details. We want to solve everything by our own. That's not necessary for a leader. The leader has to let go. The leader has to, get onto the balcony and see the big picture, the 80,000 view from the helicopter. That's really very important for a leader to see the whole big picture and not get into the details of everything. Get out of the hamster wheel. Like I said, we ourselves, if you are in the urgent, non-important task continuously, very easy to get into a hamster wheel. So you cannot get stuck in the hamster wheel. You have to get out. So it's very important to plan your activities to the topics that you're focusing on, plan your quarter, plan your year in such a way that your effort is going into the important topics on time and not at the last minute. Right? Invest on, usually people say invest on the people, invest on your skills, but I would say invest on your experiences, invest on the experiments. Of course there will be failures, of course there will be a lot of learnings, but in a long term they will be very enriching. Be a coach, be a think coach. Continuously look at people who you are working with, who are coming to you to see what is their nature. Are they seeking? Are they asking you to act? Are they just waiting for you to say something? Because that will help you also to determine what type of team you have so that you can direct them accordingly. And again, as leaders, we don't need to always look for these big projects and big transformation activities to change things, but it's usually the small changes that gives very big results. Okay, so that's about my leadership journal, which helped me to make an adaptive leadership. Quite a bit of it is presence of mind, being present, continuously learning about the situation and the people and the business, and applying it, almost on a daily basis. The second part of it, I want to take it, which is probably the next few minutes, is on how women leader can make it strong. So what does it take to make a strong women leader? It's very simple. For me, a women leader, becoming a leader, is her own choice. It cannot be pushed upon. It's not thrusted on, right? And also, it happens by expanding their horizon. When the person comes forward and wants to expand the horizon, the leadership portion starts there. The leadership willingness starts there. And finally, very often I hear people saying, it's women, so you have to take a choice. You need to decide if it's family or if it's your career. Right? And there are world famous leaders who said women cannot have it all, but I don't believe in it. So let's see why. For me, when women in the 21st century have to be successful, it takes only two things. One, first of all, step up. And second, be willing to lead. It takes a lot of willingness. So it's not something that somebody can just give it to you as a task and do it. No, it's about the willingness, what it comes from within. That matters a lot. So willing to step up means what? It's like coming forward, very simple, in simple terms, in your daily situation, be a project, be a business, be a team, organizational topic, wherever it is. When you see a challenge, if you stand up, look out, seek the questions, seek the answers, step up. Like they say, the opportunity doesn't knock on every, it doesn't knock twice on our door, they say, but I would say, so opportunity doesn't knock on everybody's door. Sometimes it just knocks at the floor. It doesn't knock on individual cubicle. It is we who has to step up and say, put our hands out and say, okay, I'm here. I hear the call. I'm there for it. I will volunteer. I will step up. And that's exactly what willing to step up means. At least this has been my experience. No failure when you do that. When you see a challenge, stand up, put your hand out and say, I will do it. And automatically the leadership. You would see that quite a few times men do that. So let's start thinking, ladies there, why should men have all the fun? Let's share a good share of it. And again, from my own journal, how does it happen? It does not happen by default. We have to be willing. We have to be leaning in. We have to be stepping up. We have to come out and say, I will do it. We have to fight our way up. That's very important. And for that, I think we need to get the confidence. We need to have the awareness of what's happening around. So it's very important to have the mentors and advisors, a very good networking. So very important to understand the organization, to understand your colleagues and build your own networks, seek your mentors, and also to enrich your own career, expand your horizon. When I say expand your horizon, it starts with simple things. It doesn't mean that we can put our hand out for every other challenge in the world, but then not take care of our own job and falter on that. We cannot do that. We have to keep one foot firm on delivering our own success. Our goals have to be met, and put the other foot outside your immediate role. It could be anything. It could be contributing to the company. It could be contributing to a neighboring team. It could be contributing to society. Keep out an ear ready for hearing out the calls, and be willing to step in. That's really what willing to lead, and be genuine to yourself. If you're not genuine, it doesn't carry you forward for a long time. Consistency is very important. At the same time, it's key to also have a good understanding of the technology. Always being willing, putting your hand out, but not having solution for problems will not help. So you need to definitely have the fundamentals clear, the fundamentals at the right level, which is strong foundation with good problem solving abilities, good people management skills, and also understanding the technology. You have to be independent. Do not expect your vice president or your president of the group or the higher leaders above you to come and drive yourself. So nobody is there to drive you. You should be a self-driving, independent car there. Demonstrate and seek for answers. That's very important. Slowly become a mentor yourself. It's not about always seeking for other mentors. You have to be a mentor for other people as well. That will improve your leadership quotient, because the learning, 360-degree learning happens there. And finally, to have it all, like I said, I don't believe in this thought that women cannot have it. We can have it all. It is up to us to define what that all is. When we have a good definition of what all means, and we are able to balance it out, then there is no stop there. We can have it all, definitely. It's about adjusting your own pace. So, on a personal level, I would like to share it, especially for the women leaders. Adjust your pace. Pay attention to your own health, your personal space, family, be with them, make everybody understand, have a good understanding, have a buy-in from your family, have a buy-in from your colleagues, define your space and boundaries, you will definitely succeed. At the same time, select your play field as well. Know your strength. Don't put out in all the areas where you don't have your strength and skill. That doesn't help at all. So know your strength. And if you think something is really closer to your heart, but you don't have the skill, develop where you lack. That's very important. Define, is team is a good area to work with? Is it team management? Is it people management? Is it business role? Where is your strength? What is your cup of tea? Find out that and focus on that. Mind your mind, right? So this is like, you become what you think. I would even say you become what you pretend. You try to practice, you try to be the person who you want to be seen as, then you will be there. That will develop your passion automatically. That will demonstrate your ability, because you are already practicing yourself. Finally, play your game. There is definitely no easy way out. It could be 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000 who may get everything their way. Things may come easy, but that's very, very rare. It's not even defined in any dictionary. So there is no easy way out at all. So when the going gets tough, it's a tough who gets going. And women are born and made tough. So I think we can make better leaders when we are mindful and we are playing the right. That's very important. Finally, this is my parting thought to say that it's not enough to be a leader for people. It's also important. We have to evolve to become leader of leaders. That's because you don't do it. I really like this anecdote to say here, where if you want to build a ship, you will not be drumming up to every individual work of building it by gathering wood and so on. Instead, just show the seed, make the people earn for it. They will find the means to do it. And that inspirational leadership quality is an important one required for a leader to become leader of leaders. And that's exactly what I call as step up leadership, where you go to the next level of leading. So that brings the end. That brings me to the end of this session as well. So we can open up for the questions.
Thank you, ma'am. It was very informative and inspiring to you talk to us about adaptive leadership, the tips, how we can improve our capabilities in becoming leaders, and finally gave us confidence how we can have it all. How we could balance both our personal life, professional life, and reach towards our goals. It was truly inspiring. So there are a couple of questions in the chat box too. However, I would like to ask, as a leader, to grow up as a leader, I am sure, as you have told, there are a lot of challenges that you would have undergone. Now, what kept you going? What is your inspiration? Or what made you to continue to be one of the top leaders in Nokia?
Yeah, in simple words, I would say earning for more. When I reach a certain goal, I don't get satisfied and sit back. I need to look at the next step immediately. Like I said, it's the continue. I mean, no situation is going to be constant, and the business is going to change. The environment is going to change. The world is moving forward. So we don't reach a position and say, or we don't reach a situation or a result and say, this is it. This is the end of it. Because when we stand still, it means we actually are working backwards. We are walking backwards as well because the world is moving forward. So even when you are stagnant, you are actually going back because the world is moving forward. So that's the principle which helps me always to say, keep moving, keep looking at new things. Or maybe the inherent ability to say that, keep looking for change, trying to do things new. That's exactly what keeps me going.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question. Excellence in leadership is achieved by practice or formal training. What is your view?
It's a very difficult one. Is it left or right eye? It would be very theoretical when I say it's both. The answer is both, I would say. But the attribute, or let's say the weightage where it comes more is definitely the experience. We need to know the concepts. Formal training is so much so like having a book. It's an open book exam. Our life is an open book exam. We have everything in front of us, but reading it, interpreting the situation, and applying the right principles to the right situation requires experience. It requires ability. That is what we need to work on. And this ability is something that we develop when we work with people, when we work with various situations, when we are observing, when we are reading. So this brings, that's why this kind of experience learning has always a higher result, and that applies to leadership as well. Of course, leadership journey in terms of learning the fundamentals through a classroom training or a formal training does help. Looking at the other leaders, we can know what they did, but then you have to be in the situation, you have to practice it, you have to feel through it to actually inculcate that habit in you, that leadership style in you, and also to really differentiate the various situations and apply them according to the situations. That's why I would say both. I would put a weightage of even up to 80% on the experience, whereas 20% of formal learning is also important, because at the end of the day we need to know we need to know the principle, because no individual would have a lifetime to experience every single mistake. Sometimes we just have to learn and then see what not to do.
Truly, ma'am. I think this is what you call as capability building in us.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ma'am, there's another question. All modes of leadership are heavily dependent on the person and or the personality. Can't guideline or task force be much better when risks outweigh the criticality of the outcome? Shall I read it again?
Yeah, I think I can see the question.
Yes, ma'am. Please do
It's a
take
very
it.
good question. Also very specific because it's not always true. I mean, we may not come across these situations all the time, right? So when it comes to leadership, yes, there is a person. I wouldn't say personality quotient, right? It's a capability quotient. Why I say not a personality quotient is it is not about the personal attributes of a person. It is about what they are learning, inculcating, and what they are practicing. That depends. So there is what we are talking about is competence, what they learn, and what they exhibit, what they practice, what they experience, which is the ability. So combined together to call it as capability. So I call it more of capability than the personality. Yes, it is dependent on the capability, right? And just by having a task force or a guideline will not be able to really get you out of the risks at all. Say, for example, if the situation is a very risky situation, like I said, if it's a risky situation, it's fine. But then, if the nature of the situation is like it's been tested, it's been proven a number of times, a similar kind of project execution, similar kind of product development, or similar kind of business scenario, or even team scenario has been already existing in many places, or people have seen through it. If there are standard operating procedures, or let's say even best practices available, or if you are able to rope in person who have gone through that, then it is okay to have a task force or okay to have a guideline itself, and which will guide the team. Like I said, the certain scenarios are fitting to this directive model. So if you have to be, controlling, commanding, be a manager, be a directive leader, then there are certain situations which will suit to it, but it cannot apply to situations where it's a do or die. That will not work just by having guidelines. For example, if a company is really, really struggling financially and is going close to bankruptcy, just by having a guideline will not help. The leader has to be in the forefront. The leader has to be ruthless because it's a chaos situation. He has to get into the commanding mode. He has to do everything under his control. That's very important. So the involvement of a leader is absolutely 100% in the situation along with the people. But just by having a task force or a guideline, if it's a familiar scenario, if the risks are still there, but then the criticality of the outcome, like you say, the risks outweigh. So which means there are higher risks than the probability of getting the outcome. But then the situation need not be a totally new scenario. There may be a lot of references for the team, where the team, which is what the guideline we derive from. Usually the guidelines are made from past references, best practices, and so on. So if there have been references or past situations which have given a good set of guidelines, then it is okay. But remember, in the new economy, in the new age, not most of the situations are repeating from the past. Quite a few times we have so many variables that defines every situation to be a unique new situation. So this kind of applications is becoming lesser relevant these days, is my opinion.
Thank you, madam. The next question is the responsibility and authority makes efficient execution. Only responsibility is not sufficient. What do you say?
See, what happens is, like I said, in a situation when we are seeing a very chaotic situation, right? Authority has to be on top of the responsibility. Just having authority alone will not help at all. That is my opinion again. I don't know if it is really in opposite to what you asked. But there are situations, I'll take the same example where if you're going through a bankruptcy scenario, and if you think authority can matter, then if that can determine all the results, the FNC, the finance and controlling team, can get all the results because they have the absolute control and authority in their hand. But is that enough? The whole organization, whole team, everybody has to buy in there. Everybody has to really understand it. Everybody has to find different means of achieving things within the given boundaries. So that is why just the authority alone is not important, is not enough and sufficient. We need the responsibility. We need the buy-in of the team to be along with the journey. That's very important. Whatever be the leadership style, the team has to be really understood well so that you know that you're applying the right style on the right people. That's very important. That's why the responsibility of leader is very important, not just having authority. There are definitely a few instances and scenarios we do see that just having responsibility alone does not help, because people expect that stamp for to believe or to follow you. But that is only usually an initiation attribute. The authority is only an initiation. Just having the authority will not take you long at all. So it's the responsibility which determines more of the result in such scenarios.
Thank you, ma'am. The next one is leaders always face many opposing comments while taking critical decisions. How can we address this?
That's a fact. I think first thing we have to accept is that we will not be loved by all. You know? I used to explain the scenario in one of my experience where there were certain difficult decisions, or probably I had to say in a certain way, in a specific role, the number of times no, the number of no's I said was much more the number of yes I have said. It's a very specific role that I played for some time. I mean, the way I imagined, or the way I perceive the situations, people used to have a dartboard and play a dart game with my face in the dart. That's a kind of role that I was playing. So yes, as a leader, when you take decision, you don't need to be always welcomed by the team. But at the same time, if your decisions in the long run are not showing results, if the decisions, if the people see that they are not getting results through your decisions, which is helping them, helping companies' growth or helping the project results, then it is not going to help them. Then the role that you're playing is not also effective. So we need to be really assessing the situation when people are very critical. Is it because the rules that we have laid out is causing difficulty in the short term, and in the long run it's going to make them better, right? Or the role that we are playing, or the rules that we are laying out for playing the game is only making their life difficult. So we have to really assess this as a leader and find out. And I think if you are seeing in a situation where for a very long time that people are really not appreciative of you and they are very critical, there could be something wrong in your style or the direction in which you are taking. So it's time for introspection. But if you don't know very clearly, it's a short period of time because of the challenges and the difficulties it brings for the people in their daily life to get the result out. I think it's one way to face it is face it with a smile. Bring them more correlation, bring them the references why you think that the guidelines or the rules that you have laid out is very important, why they have to follow that. And there is a one important ability of leadership will help here is a leader has to be a painter. you know every leader should be a painter. We should know how to draw a beautiful picture, and this picture is nothing but the future. If you are able to paint the future, then the people will follow you in a happy with a happy heart. Now if you are not showing them the future picture, then yes, the critics will be more than the happy followers will.
Thank you, ma'am. Next interesting question. What is the difference between a leader and a boss?
This is extremely difficult. Yeah, I think like you said. Um, yeah, I think there was one previous question, right? Responsible leader or authoritative leader.
Correct.
I would see that I think is my own definition of how I would differentiate a leader and a boss. Somebody who we abide by because we have to do, because it is written somewhere. You know, it is about. It's not about the spirit, but it's about the letter of position. Then yes, then there is a connotation of boss coming there. But otherwise, a leader is the one where we follow by spirit, where we are really looking up to a person who paints the so-called future picture, who is setting up the vision, who understands the team and applies the right leadership style where needed. So in a way, he helps everybody, he helps the organization, he helps himself, right? So then that's a leader.
We have the last question here. During conflicts or challenging times, which leadership works? I think this is discussed. You can add upon it, ma'am.
Yeah, it's a difficult again, a little difficult question in the sense the conflicts and challenging times. I don't know how to put them together, but if you say challenging times, it can come from different meaning. So it could be the market is completely changing and hence it's challenging, right? But then in such case, you also see challenges come with opportunities. It could be a mature market, it's extremely challenging because the financial prospects are going down. Then there is a totally different kind of challenges you're saying. Like I said, the leadership style has to be different. If it's an opportunistic challenge, or a lot of opportunities existing in a certain scenario, then we need a challenging leader role. We need to challenge the people to bring the best out of them. But at the same time, if it is a chaotic situation, a complex situation, complex and chaotic situation, which is really troubling the situation, then in that case, we need to be either controlling or commanding, where you either do everything, put all the lay down rules, and then you have to strictly make everybody follow it, or you actually command them, lay the rules out, give the direction, and ask them to go in their direction and so on. So this changes. The challenges could be of different nature. So there's going to be very difficult to say this is the style for challenging situation. When it comes to conflict, I think it is about conflict management is actually a totally different theory by itself. So I wouldn't apply the leadership style on conflict management. There we have to simply follow the conflict management principles, in my opinion. They don't really go, because you can be a leader of any leadership style, and in any of these situations, conflict may arise. Depending on the nature of the conflict, you have to apply the conflict management principles. So it's not really about the leadership style itself. Of course, when there is a conflict arising, if you're only a supportive leader or if you're a manager trying to pacify things or trying to just be supportive for the people, it doesn't help. So you might, I mean, the qualities needed in the leadership in such case could be you have to be a charismatic person so that people listen to you. So you need to be commanding and controlling as well, because when conflicts go out of hand, you have to get the order in place. So you need to have that command in the team. That is one attribute, but I wouldn't fully say commanding leadership is the style for conflict management, but the conflict management principle itself is a different discipline in management.
There's another question, ma'am. What would be first step to take for achieving targets as a global team?
Uh-huh.
What would be the first step to take for achieving targets in a global team?
It depends on the targets that we are defining. But in general, when we are talking about a global team, there are certain attributes which we need to keep in mind. One is the culture, because it's going to be now dealing with people coming from totally different origin, language, belief, everything is different. And for example, like I mean, this famous, understanding of how do you say yes or a no with an Indian is very different from we say like this. But if you look at the Westerners and Europeans, for them, yes or a no is only this way. So the way that we nod our head self differentiates in the different cultures. So, as a global leader, when you're working with multicultural teams, the first important thing is to understand how the team has evolved in these different places. What are the different teams that has come to you? What is the nature of the team? What is their demographics and the team attributes as well? Because again, there could be experienced teams. So usually, if you go for certain countries, especially in the developed countries in Europe or US, you will see a lot of experienced and senior people in the team. You will have actually experts, deep experts who have worked in a specific area for 10 years, 20 years time frame. But if you go for the countries of young economies, you will see a lot of youngsters who have gone a breadth of roles, who have got an experience in various jobs, in a matter of a few years itself. So their experience nature will be very different. So if you are setting targets, you need to understand what are their abilities, what are their expertise, and what are their mindset. For example, the nature of the team, like I said, are they go-getters? Are they calm people? Are they go-getters? Are they very challenging? Do they really run behind challenge and get things done? So you need to understand the team nature as well before you set the targets. If you try to set one global target and distribute it to everybody, that's one recipe for failure for sure.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. As a women leader, what are the challenges faced by you on a daily basis?
Very frankly speaking, I think the challenges I faced are just as as a person, as an employee, or as a leader. I don't think the challenge has been very specific because I'm a woman. So that's something. Maybe it is also coming from a certain field, a privileged field, or from a privileged background, whatever. I don't think it is really because of a women leader. All said and done, is it a cakewalk? No, I don't think so. Yes. So there have been differences. Maybe there are minor irritants. There are a few things that you observe. I think what I have seen always to overcome those challenges is it could be that people are kind of stereotyping you. Yeah, stereotyping is one thing which I do face time to time. It's not all across the board. There are a lot of women leaders and male leaders who have been very responsible, very appreciative, and they take leaders as leaders and not with the genders. I've seen this in my own experience, but yes, there are also a few cases or situations where I've seen through stereotyping comes into the picture. Right? So that's one thing, but I've overcome that by demonstration. I think there are certain things where, and also seeking out, you know, leaning in or stepping up, putting my hand out and say, hey, why is it not coming on this way? Why is it not coming my way? That's my field, that's my strength. I can see more contributions there. So those kind of things, by stepping up and demanding, seeking, and demonstrating, I'm able to overcome that. But I think stereotyping is probably one of the cases that I would have seen. Apart from that, probably it's different from different countries. In certain cultures, in certain countries, the challenges for women are very different from certain other developed countries and so on. So depending on different places that I go, the kind of challenges you see is very different.
This is another question for you, ma'am. On the top of the pyramid, women leaders as women are very few. That is what the statistics tell. What is your opinion? How is that? Or probably when do you foresee that more women, more leaders are women at the top of the pyramid?
We can't put a definitive time frame for this. Times are changing, definitely, and in certain fields we do see a lot of women. And from my reading, what I read through and what I understood, what I observed in the industry is, I think this decade, particularly post 2000, there is a lot more awareness and interest, in all the corporations across to bring an equal world. They are looking at diversity and gender balancing, and the diversity initiatives are, everywhere. See it. So that's a positive sign. That's a big change happening in this century. Definitely, the change to come forward is there very soon. But however, like I said, stepping up is very important for me. So I think quite a few times women are, why we are not there in good numbers, in my own frank opinion, is quite a few times women are laid back and sitting and waiting to be nominated. Because it's more like, okay, I have the skill, I have demonstrated, so let me sit back. But that is not enough. If we want to see more people at the top, if we want to see an equal gender representation at the top of the pyramid, then we need the women leaders, the women experts, the women capable, the capable women to come forward and stand up and put their hand out and say, I can do it. I want to do it. Seek out the opportunities. Do not wait for somebody else, especially the male gender, to come and give these opportunities in a village. And I think this has to be understood by both the genders, so that even when when we have male leaders, they have to keep in mind and they have to encourage people to put their hand up. They have to encourage the people to stand up and ask for it. And they have to inculcate this habit. They have to cultivate this kind of culture in the place, in the workplace, in their organizations, so that women can really understand that they are being called out to put their hand out. That's very important. But I think the onus is on the women themselves, that we have to put out our hand and say, I'm capable, I'm fitting for this, I have the expertise to do it, I want to do it.
Thank you, ma'am. This is almost like a concluding remarks where all of us need to step out of our comfort zone, move towards our goal, and make sure at the top of the pyramid we have equal in terms of gender equality. Thank you, ma'am. Uh,
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the audience for your patient listening and for the very good questions. It was good learning as well. Some of the questions are open. Thank you very much. And I really enjoyed the session. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. You stayed with us closer to 100 minutes. I know you're extremely busy. You have a lot of work on hand. Thank you on behalf of the Bangalore section and all my participants here. Thank you. We will continue to connect to you from IEEE Bangalore section. I would like to thank all the participants. We still have 65 people with us. It shows how people are interested to learn from you, ma'am. So tomorrow we'll join at the same time, 7 o'clock. We have Neeta Patel, who will be talking again on leadership learnings. She is the director of IEEE Foundation. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.